Welcome to Shadowshiver, a podcast that tells real or imaginary horror stories. It's up to you, believe it. Is it not strange to receive a mysterious package on your doorstep? A package with no return address, just a small, innocuous-looking box wrapped in brown paper. And yet, it was addressed to me. It was mine. How could I resist the temptation to open it, oblivious to any potential dangers that may lie within? I eagerly tore open the package. Inside, I found two items that sent a chill down my spine. The first was a DVD, its surface devoid of any markings or labels. The second was a small wooden figure, a bear, but there was something unsettling about its eyes, as if they held a malevolent gaze. Without a moment's hesitation, I inserted the DVD into my computer, the tiny bear sitting ominously on the table beside me. The screen flickered to life, revealing a simple menu with 4 chapters: Origin, Cast, Ellen Asks to Leave, and Overture. Intrigued and yet apprehensive, I clicked on the Origin chapter. The screen transformed into a series of flashing words, start appearing briefly before dissolving into a haunting forest scene. The camera, held unsteadily by an unseen individual, slowly navigated through the dense woods. The only sounds were those of nature, the rustling of leaves, the distant chirping of birds. But there was something else. A faint, almost imperceptible breathing. It was too quiet to belong to the cameraman. After what seemed like an eternity, the camera finally reached a dilapidated structure. A house, or perhaps more accurately, a shack. A decrepit wire fence surrounded the perimeter, with an open gate inviting the curious to enter. The cameraman circled the house, capturing every angle, every detail. 2 windows, one on the west, one on the east, revealed nothing but darkness, save for a glimpse of a motionless figure inside. A woman, perhaps. Her stillness was unsettling, as if frozen in time. The cameraman's grip on the camera was remarkably steady, a testament to their resolve. There was no shaking, no distortion, as they continued their exploration. But as the last circle was completed, a sudden sound pierced the silence, the crunch of leaves being crushed underfoot. Someone else was there, lurking in the shadows. Fear gripped the cameraman, and in a panic, they darted behind the house, seeking refuge from the unknown. The camera jostled, capturing glimpses of the trail they had just traversed. The sound of footsteps grew louder, closer. The danger was palpable, and the video abruptly cuts off, leaving the viewer in a state of suspense and unease. What was on the rest of the DVD? Who was behind the camera? And what fate awaited them in that desolate place? These questions gnawed at my mind as I contemplated the significance of the wooden bear, its eyes seemingly watching my every move. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a nightmarish journey into the depths of terror, a journey that would test the limits of my sanity and confront me with horrors beyond imagination. As if compelled by an unseen force, the camera abruptly shifts, as if it was about to reveal the cameraman's face. But just as quickly, the screen cuts to black, leaving nothing but a series of inexplicable numbers etched into the darkness. Is it not strange to find a box waiting on your doorstep, addressed specifically to you? The absence of a return address should have raised suspicions, but curiosity outweighed any rational concerns. It was a small package, wrapped in nondescript brown paper, my name meticulously inscribed in dark, foreboding ink. It was meant for me. There was no doubt, and so, without hesitation, I succumbed to the irresistible urge to unveil its secrets. Inside the box lay 2 items, seemingly innocuous at first glance. The first was the DVD, devoid of any recognizable markings, yet radiating an aura of malevolence. The second was a small wooden figure, a bear, its presence invoking a sense of unease. Ignoring any trepidation that may have lingered, I inserted the DVD into my computer. The eerie bear perched ominously on the table beside me. The screen flickered to life, revealing a simple menu with 4 enigmatic chapters: Origin, Cast, Ellen Asks to Leave, and Overture. A shiver ran down my spine as I clicked on the Origin chapter. Unaware of the horrors that awaited, the screen erupted in a flurry of flashing words, start tauntingly appearing and disappearing before plunging me into a haunting forest scene. The camera, gripped by an unseen hand, meandered through the dense woods. The only sounds that permeated the eerie silence were those of nature, the rustling of leaves, the distant hooting of an owl. But beneath the surface, A subtle, almost imperceptible breathing seemed to accompany the cameraman's every step. It was too quiet, too eerie to belong to the one holding the camera. Minutes turned into an eternity as the unseen cameraman delved deeper into the heart of the wilderness. Finally, a dilapidated structure materialized before their eyes, an abode that could only be described as a shack, its very existence defying reason. A decrepit wire fence encased the structure, its twisted metal an ominous barrier, with an open gate beckoning the daring. The cameraman cautiously circled the enigmatic dwelling. 4 times they circled, their gaze fixated on the 2 windows that adorned the shack's walls, one on the west, one on the east. Through the murky glass, the faint outline of a woman could be discerned, her unmoving form reminiscent of a ghostly apparition. The camera remained remarkably steady, as if held with a purpose, capturing every minute detail without a hint of trembling or distortion. As the final circle was completed, the cameraman's attention shifted to the trail they had just traversed, a sense of unease permeating the air. The sound of crunching leaves echoed through the speakers, its ominous presence a harbinger of impending doom. Panic seized the cameraman, urging them to seek refuge behind the shack, their frantic movements causing the camera to jostle and lose focus. And just like that, the video abruptly ends, leaving me suspended in a state of terror and uncertainty. What terrors lay beyond that fateful encounter? Who was the unseen cameraman? And what fate befell them in that desolate and foreboding place? These questions, now etched deeply into my mind, gnaw at my sanity as I contemplate the significance of the enigmatic wooden bear, its unblinking eyes seemingly piercing through the veil of reality. Unbeknownst to me, this was merely the prelude, the opening act of a nightmarish odyssey into the realms of the macabre, where darkness and horror intertwine, and the boundaries of fear are pushed to their limits. The terror seizes the cameramen as they frantically seek refuge behind the sinister house. Their heart pounding in their chest, the camera lurches forward, as if anticipating the reveal of the cameraman's face, only to abruptly cut out, leaving nothing but a cryptic sequence of numbers etched in yellow and black on the screen. 43.1, 84,094, 89.627832, and then, without warning, I am thrust back into the main menu, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and confusion, attempting to regain control over the unfolding nightmare. I desperately click on the origin chapter once more, only to discover that it is now crossed out with a menacing yellow X. It is then that I notice the little wooden bear, toppled over on its side, as if disturbed by the malevolent forces at play. Ignoring the unsettling sight, I proceed to click on the next chapter. Cast. The screen flickers to life, revealing footage of black trash bags, their sinister presence permeating the scene. It becomes apparent that these bags have been used, discarded remnants of a dark and unknown purpose. But before I can fully grasp the implications, the video abruptly shifts to a dimly lit kitchen. A woman, her back turned to the camera, stands before a stove, a green dress clinging to her figure. Her actions are mundane, stirring something in a pot, but there is an underlying tension in the air. Faintly, I can hear her sniffling, as if burdened by some unseen sorrow. Suddenly, a cacophony of sound erupts from off-camera. The thunderous pounding of footsteps and the piercing cries of a child. Strangely, the woman remains unfazed, her focus undeterred by the chaos unfolding around her. The camera, now in the hands of a different individual, moves with a sense of recklessness. They turn away from the woman, their attention fixated on a young girl, kneeling on the kitchen floor as if in prayer. Her hands are folded tightly, cradling a book against her chest. A disturbing sight awaits as I notice that her head has been shaved, save for a peculiar chunk of hair that hangs precariously, almost detached, obscuring a portion of her face. And yet, there is no hint of alarm or concern from anyone present in the scene. The footage descends further, revealing another child, a young boy, cowering at the feet of the cameraman, his tear-streaked face contorted in agony. His cries echo through the room, but instead of offering solace or comfort, the camera person callously delivers a swift kick to the boy's stomach, eliciting a cry of pain. The cruelty displayed is chilling, a stark reminder of the darkness that envelops this twisted world. A shiver courses through my spine as I realize the true nature of the horrors captured on this cursed DVD. Each chapter unravels a tapestry of terror, exposing the depths of human depravity and the malevolence lurking just beneath the surface. And yet, I am unable to tear my eyes away, compelled to bear witness to the horrors that await in the subsequent chapters. Knowing that there may be no escape from the nightmares that unfold before me, the dialogue on the DVD sends chills down my spine, as the voice of the adult man, presumably the cameraman, fills the room. "You forgot to face your father," he coldly remarks, his words dripping with a sinister undertone. The camera pans to a young boy, desperately crawling towards a girl, his hands grasping at her clothes in a desperate attempt to gain her attention. Though he does not speak in words, his pleading gestures speak volumes, but the girl remains indifferent, her silence a haunting response to his pleas. The man's voice resonates once more, his command laced with an unspoken threat. "Do as you are told, or what you are told will be done to you." The boy's eyes search the camera, a flicker of hope extinguished as he finds no solace within its lens. Slowly, he manages to scramble onto his knees, his body trembling with fear and resignation. In a macabre twist, the girl takes the book she had been holding and delicately places it on the boy's head, balancing it with precision. It is impossible to discern the title of the book, as if its contents are meant to remain shrouded in darkness. The boy begins to whisper, his words barely audible, while the girl tenderly kisses him on the mouth before resuming her own prayers. The camera pans back to the woman in the kitchen, her dress now removed, leaving her naked and vulnerable. Her back is marred with scars, a testament to the pain she has endured. 3 of her fingers on the right hand are missing, a grim reminder of past torment. As the cameraman approaches her, a black-gloved hand gently strokes her injured spine, eliciting no reaction from the woman, who continues to stir whatever concoction simmers on the stove. The man behind the camera sets it down on the counter, revealing only the woman's midsection. A sense of dread fills the air as he steps into view, wearing a long jacket and clutching a gleaming machete in his gloved hand. The blade presses against the woman's skin, a sickening display of power and cruelty. Before anything further can unfold, the scene abruptly cuts away, leaving me suspended in a void of darkness. As the screen fades to black, a series of letters illuminate the void in bright yellow, etching themselves into my mind. Jehoing versus bound HESN Guar UNFABSNPR. I try to decipher their meaning, but they remain an enigma, a puzzle without a solution. Suddenly, the main menu reappears, as if taunting me with its insistence on continuing this nightmarish journey. I long to be done with the horrors that have unfolded before me, but the next chapter loads without my consent, plunging me further into the depths of this twisted tale. As I approached the fallen bear, a sense of unease washed over me, causing me to hesitate. Something felt off, as if an invisible force held me in place, preventing me from reaching out to pick it up. The bear lay on its side, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within the depths of this cursed DVD. The next chapter, ominously titled Helen Still, exuded an unsettling aura, promising to unveil the most disturbing footage yet. Unlike the previous chapters, there was no gradual introduction or build-up. Instead, the scene opened abruptly, with the camera fixed upon an empty chair at a table. The room was cloaked in darkness, but not complete blackness, as the flickering light of a few candles cast eerie shadows upon the scene. The only sound that permeated the silence was the labored breathing of unseen individuals, their presence felt but not seen. This eerie stillness persisted for what felt like an eternity. Nearly 10 agonizing minutes. I found myself unable to tear my gaze away, trapped in a macabre trance. Finally, a man's voice pierced the silence, singing in a tuneless, unsettling manner. The song he chose was Hey Jude by the Beatles, but his rendition held a disturbing twist, dripping with anger and accusation. As the man's torso came into view, he picked up the camera, shifting its focus to the rest of the room. Around the table sat 3 figures, whom I recognized as the characters from the previous chapter. Their identities remained hidden beneath black trash bags, with small slits cut to allow for some air to seep in. Even so, it was evident that they struggled to breathe, the plastic constricting against their faces, only to be expelled with each labored exhale. In front of each person sat an empty plate, a stark contrast to the centerpiece of the table, the lifeless body of a raccoon. Its decaying form revealed the passage of time, its flesh ravaged by maggots feasting upon its decaying remains. The man, his actions filled with malicious intent, approached the table, snatching the bags off of each person's head in a violent and savage manner. The first bag revealed a young girl, her lungs desperately gasping for air, her eyes displaying the haunting aftermath of violence as a black eye marred her delicate features. A small chunk of hair clung to her nose and mouth, a cruel reminder of the torment she had endured. She remained motionless, trapped in a state of resignation, unable to free herself from the suffocating grip of this nightmarish reality. The next bag to be removed belonged to the woman, her expression devoid of any reaction except for rapid blinking, her neck twisted at an odd angle. Evidence of a gruesome fate. Dried blood clung to the corners of her mouth, a stark reminder of the violence inflicted upon her. She refused to acknowledge the presence of the man or the young girl, her gaze fixed on some unseen horror. Finally, the last bag was lifted, revealing the young boy. His eyes remained open, but his pallid skin hinted at a life force on the brink of extinguishment. It was unclear whether he still drew breath, his existence hanging in a fragile balance. The man, now circling back to the head of the table, took a seat, placing the camera in front of him. His singing ceased, replaced by a loud, maniacal laugh that reverberated through the room. "A family that eats together, stays together," he declared, his words dripping with twisted satisfaction. "Aren't we a family?" he challenged, his eyes scanning the room for a response that never came. The silence further fueled his rage. "Well, aren't we?" he bellowed, his voice laced with malice. A timid voice, barely audible, squeaked a hesitant yes. "John. I mean, Dad." It was the little girl, her words carrying the weight of fear and resignation. The woman and the young boy remained silent, their spirits broken, satisfied with their compliance. The man issued a command. "Feast," he uttered, his voice laden with sadistic glee. The woman and the little girl rose from their seats, their hands bound tightly behind their backs. They leaned forward, their faces plunged into the decaying carcass of the raccoon, tearing at its flesh with desperate hunger. Blood, pus, and maggots adorned their faces, a grotesque testament to their insatiable appetite. The boy, however, remained motionless, his eyes stared blankly ahead, unblinking, as if trapped in a trance. The man hummed a haunting melody, a distorted rendition of a familiar tune. As the revolting feast continued, they devoured the raccoon, swallowing maggots along with the raw meat, their hunger driving them to the brink of madness. Minutes turned into an agonizing eternity as the repulsive banquet persisted. At one point, a bone flew through the air, striking the boy's temple. Still, he did not react. The bone landed in his lap, a macabre reminder of the horrors that surrounded him. Finally, unable to contain his rage any longer, the man pounded his fist against the table, sensing his displeasure. The woman and the little girl reluctantly tore themselves away from their feast. Blood and pus smeared their faces, a grotesque mask of their depravity. The man, his actions now veiled in a sickening pretense of care, approached the little girl. It appeared as though he intended to clean her up, but his touch lingered far too long, a sickening violation of her fragile innocence. As her mid-deep chest heaves with exertion, the man's gloved hands forcefully cover her face and body. He leans in, his lips pressing against the back of her head. In response, she tightly shuts her eyes, a futile attempt to block out the horrors unfolding around her. Suddenly, a loud boom reverberates through the room, followed by the retching sound of vomit splattering onto the table. The distraction catches the man off guard, causing him to rush over and deliver a vicious slap across her face. "You are ruining our friendly dinner," he hisses, his anger palpable. For the first time, she stares back at him defiantly, her eyes filled with a flicker of resistance. "Leave her alone," she manages to utter, her voice laced with a newfound strength. "She's my daughter." The woman attempts to voice her objection, but before she can speak, the man grabs her by her hair and slams her face into the table. The sickening sound of impact resonates through the room as he repeats the action 7 times, each blow splattering blood onto the wooden surface. With a final act of brutality, he throws her lifeless body onto the floor and snatches the camera, his voice dripping with contempt. "Ungrateful, ungrateful, ungrateful," he mutters, his words a chilling refrain. The video cuts to a series of scenes depicting the fate of sinners, each punishment more gruesome than the last. The camera captures the torment inflicted upon women during this time, their suffering portrayed with a sadistic glee. Unbeknownst to the characters in the video, the little girl has quietly retreated from the table, shrinking away from the horrors surrounding her. In the last fragment of footage, a young boy, clearly dead for several days, lies upon an altar. A towering statue of the Virgin Mary looms behind him, its face mirroring the haunting visage seen in the window of the structure in the first chapter. The chapter abruptly ends, and the main menu begins flashing on the screen, taunting me with its presence. At that moment, I realized I could not move. I looked down, only to discover that my hands were bound with the same rope that had restrained the woman in the video. Desperation and fear consumed me as I called out for help, but my cries were muffled by something lodged in my mouth. With great effort, I managed to cough, expelling a small wooden bear onto the table before me. As the next chapter began playing, the overture filled the room. The screen transformed into a hypnotic yellow and black stripe, the yellow saturating the black until the entire screen was engulfed in a sickly hue. The video then cut to a man named John, his presence marking the beginning of another horrifying chapter. As the little girl watches, the man speaks into the camera in a rapid-fire manner. His words are a jumbled mess, lacking coherence and making no apparent sense. However, amidst the chaos, one theme becomes clear: family. He oscillates between claiming he has no family and then immediately referencing the family he either has or has created. Throughout his ramblings, he clutches a book in his hands, its title obscured from view, but the cover reveals a gun, a sinister symbol of violence and death. Using the book as a prop, the man pretends to shoot himself, repeatedly uttering "Dad, Dad, 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 Dad." The desire for his father's demise echoes through his words, a chilling revelation of the twisted longings within his family. After 10 minutes of nonsensical rambling, the man pulls out a chunk of wood and begins biting into it. With the wood wedged in his mouth, he reaches below him and retrieves a severed hand, its arm disappearing off screen. Only 2 fingers remain on the dismembered limb, a grotesque sight that sends shivers down the little girl's spine. The final footage resembles the first chapter, but this time the person on screen is running frantically. They sprint through the dense woods, their urgency palpable. Eventually, they arrive at a small house, their chest heaving with exhaustion. In their haste, the cameraman drops the camera, distorting the image. Suddenly, my laptop screen goes completely black, leaving me in a state of eerie silence. In the darkness, I hear my own voice, trembling and uncertain. I look down and realize my hands are no longer bound together. In fact, they may have never been restrained in the first place. The little wooden bear sits upright and undisturbed, just as I had left it. With newfound courage, I eject the DVD from my laptop and close it without hesitation. I break the disc in half, hoping to sever any lingering connection to the horrors I had witnessed. But my respite is short-lived. Another box, wrapped in a black trash bag, materializes on my porch the next morning. Dread washes over me as I realize that the nightmare is far from over. The contents of this box, meant specifically for me, remain a mystery, waiting to unleash a new wave of terror. As I reflect on the chilling experience, I can't help but wonder about the creator of the video. Their casual sign-off and invitation for more stories, accompanied by custom theme songs, sends a shiver down my spine. Who is this person? And what twisted pleasure do they derive from narrating tales of horror? The unanswered questions haunt me, leaving me on edge and wary of the unknown.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you liked this story, subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and see you next story.